we're printing and painting Gohan Super Saiyan 2 by Tanuki figures. And this is going to be quite the doozy because we're going to try out some cell shading painting on this one. We're not doing the typical paint style on this because I wanted to try out cell shading painting with this model just because it is Dragon Ball Z. So wish me luck. Alright, we're starting off with the primer using Chaos Black. It's an expensive spray paint, but it does turn out really nice. It's a nice flat coat. And we're doing this to the whole figure. We're doing it all primer. That way the layers of paint will stick to the figure perfectly, because if you don't, then sometimes the paint can rub off just the plain resin by itself. And normally on the skin tones, I would do like a zenithal highlight and do like a pink and red tones in the skin tone. But since we're doing a cell shading style paint on the body, we're just going to be doing it with a base coat that's lighter, like for the primer. And for the base coat, we're going to be dry brushing it. Dry brushing is the easiest technique, and it looks so good. So we start off with black, and we work our way up through lighter shades of brown. So we're doing chocolate brown for the base coat of brown on top of that black. Just trying to get all over the figure, every nook, every cranny. And making sure that it's all uniform and you can see that brown just about everywhere. And then we're going to a lighter shade up with earth, going over those browns just to try and lighten up and shade up those areas that have the brown in it, making it look layered. Ogres have layers. Also, throughout painting or dry brushing, I'll actually switch to a smaller dry brush so I can get into those smaller like nooks and crannies. It makes it easier so it's not just all like blasted over the figure. And then we're gonna go with leather brown as another lighter tone, like in the highlights within the highlights. Yes, and before you ask, that was a Harry Potter makeup brush set that I bought from Walmart to use for dry brushing. Don't judge. It works. It's cheaper than some dry brushes. And if you have to raid your girlfriend or significant other's makeup brushes, don't come for me. And for the edges of this, like the highlights to make it look lighter on the edges of it, I use yellow ochre. I do this all around the edges of the figure to make it look like that's where the light is casting on to catch those lights. Normally, I would use deck tan for this, like if it's regular like rock and stone texture. But since it's like brown, the deck tan doesn't really look that well. It does in certain cases, but within this one, I use yellow ochre and it turned out really well. And also, after all my figures that I'm done painting, I always hit them with a coat of clear matte to protect that. And it actually makes the undertones and colors underneath pop even more, as you'll see coming up. And now that we're all done, what we'll do is we'll hit that with that Krylon matte coat spray paint. You can pick this up at almost any hobby store, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, like $6 to $9. Fairly cheap. I used to use the Mr. Hobby Super Matte, but that's been harder to find recently. And I go over outfit in clothing pieces with a highlight, but it was all pointless and a waste of time because a lot of the style that I did, like the style I did with this, it didn't even matter. You couldn't even really tell. So I just go over this with a highlight, and then I decide that, oh, I'm just gonna highlight it anyway with a brighter color on top of that. So the Zena or the highlight doesn't even matter. I was going to do the skin tones first on the pants, but I did them and I decided, screw it. We'll do the pants first and then just hand paint the skin tones because they needed to be painted anyway on top of. So why make it harder painting the whole pants by hand? Listen, I act like I know what I'm doing, but I just wing it half the time. I've been painting for about 4 years, give or take. And if you saw the first thing I ever painted versus now, you would be surprised. All it takes is practice and consistency. You can't get good at something if you don't keep doing it. So we're going to start off on the shoes after we do the highlights that were pointless. We're going to do a base coat of brown on those. This P3 leather bootstrap. We go over the whole boot with that, with the fur. Listen, my technique may not be well. I may not. Some people may watch this and be like, "Oh, he is doing this wrong. He's doing that wrong." I'm just doing what works for me. If you find something that works better for you, do it your way. Yes, I realize that it's too watered down and it's getting all over the foot, the boot, and it's not looking well. So I decide to stop for a while, come back with a brighter color to do the highlights. And I just do that in the highlights, just angling the foot or boot down, kind of getting the side because the light hits every direction, just not from the bottom. Some of you may say, "Well, how can how can a light hit the back of a shoe?" Well, light reflects off of surfaces and therefore will light the back of your shoe. And now I'm going to go over in the shadows with Sigor Brown. It's just a darker brown. I angle the shoe or foot, boot slash whatever upside down. And then after I'm done with that, since I'm doing a kind of cell shading style, I'm going to I'm not really applying the effects on the boot per se, but I'm going to do the cross lines that they have, and it turned out pretty well. And for the sock, I'm going to do, or whatever it is, pant thingy, undercloth, I don't know. I'm going to be using, yeah, what's that color called again? Dectan, yeah, Dectan. All right. And then we're going to go over the clothes part with a blue violet. I thought this looked the closest to the color. I'm not trying to match the render image at all. I'm trying to do my own cell shading style on it. This is the first time I'm doing cell shading. And I wouldn't say that it's exactly cell shading. It's more so like a combination of both. I go over all the clothes that are purple or blue violet with a Magos purple into the shadows. Just angling the figure upside down so it catches the shadows naturally. And I do this for the pants and the shirt. Anytime you're doing shading, you just want to angle the figure down and just paint the bottom parts of it, and it turns out pretty well. And once it all looks good for me, I hit it with that clear coat again, and then I'm going to do the skin tones by hand. For the base coat, I am using a salmon rose for the base coat. Now I'm starting with the lightning. I'm hitting them with a clear coat to try and get them a little bit more translucent before I hit them, and also help the clear blue ink that I'm using actually apply and stick to the surface better. And then we use a blue ink to do the blue. And we do that all over, trying to make sure it's all uniform all over the part. Because sometimes when you use these inks and you use it on the clear resin, it's hard to tell if you got the whole part or not once you start painting it. And we do that for every single piece. So from what I gathered, the cell shading is just basically doing a solid color for the skin tone, and then in like the crevasses, you use like a darker skin tone, and then in the highlights or just parts of the skin that you would think would be the highlights, you use a lighter skin tone, and then you use a lighter skin tone on top of that. So what I did with the chest piece, I went over it with a salmon rose, and then in the crevices, I used brown rose. And then in the highlights, I just went up each side. And then anywhere I figured there might be some shadows, I put more of that brown rose, like in that collarbone area. Uh, just kind of experiment with it. I did do a test piece for this as well to see how I liked it to go about it. And it turned out pretty well. I just ended up going with a different color because I could not remember what the original colors were that I used in the practice piece. And you may notice, like, when you're brushing, you're like, oh, maybe there's some brush strokes. I'm telling you, once it dries, as long as you thin your paint enough, uh, and once it dries and you hit it with that matte clear coat, it hides all that and it looks so much better. So I'm just going over the primer that I used with just the base coat of the salmon before I hand brush the highlights on and the shadows. And I'm just using salmon rose over all of the skin tone part. And then I go back over and touch up the highlights with the basic skin tone and then the highlight skin. I do the same thing for each one, each skin tone part. And then once I'm done with all the skin tone and I like how it looks, I go back over with like, I use these markers, like these fine tip point markers, but also some parts I will use the brush to do it. Just because sometimes the marker will slip more when you're trying to do those like cross marks. As you can tell in some spots on the little black lines that it looks like it might have like slipped. It looks okay enough to me. It's not a big deal. It kind of goes with everything and it's not a super big deal. I'd rather it look a little like a jolt than be too thick and dark of a black line on it. Here I'm just going on with a dark blue over the cloth. Uh, and putting the arms in because the arms will not stay in without gluing it. Normally, I'll just set my models together without gluing them. That way, in case I ever need to move, it's not a pain. And I just go over the yellow ochre with the sun yellow and the highlights. And I do that for every single piece of hair. And then I go over that again with a lighter color. Now, initially, when I finished the hair, I did not go over it with the black like sketch cross lines that I have all over the skin tones and stuff. But I do end up doing that off camera, and it actually turned out pretty well. I do have some areas to touch up on it, but overall, I do like how it looks on the hair. Uh, and now I'm just doing salmon rose as the base skin tone. And then I'm going over the highlight areas. I wasn't sure how to exactly highlight the face. Because typically when you're doing it with an airbrush, you just angle it down across the center of the face and like rotate it slightly. But here I just looked up similar people's work for doing cell shading on faces, and I just kind of did the same pattern they did with the lighting and the highlights on the face. And it actually turned out fairly well, in my opinion. And I go over the eyes with a deck tan. I don't use exactly white. And then for the eyebrows, I just use that lighter yellow that I used in the hair. I didn't do like the highlighting on the actual eyebrows. I just did the lightest tone that I did in the hair, which was moon yellow. And then I start doing the cross or the lines on the face, kind of adding it all together. Anywhere there was like a curve or like a crease that you would have in your face, or like when you naturally like squint, or anywhere like there would be like a line, like a wrinkle, I added a line on him. I traced the eyes, the eyebrows, and this part I would say just take your time with, because you don't want to jolt like your wrist, which I kind of did on the eye, but I was able to fix it. And I randomly will go on the like corners of the face and spots of the face and do like the random like slashes that they would typically have on the character in anime. I just kind of guessed where they would be. I didn't look exactly where they would be, and they turned out good. I was happy with it. And thank God Tanuki Figures modeled an actual eye in, because I hate freehanding the eyes. But for the eyes, I just used black as kind of like the base for the eye. And then I went back in with the electric blue to do the color of the eye. And when I was all done with that, I went in to finish the last piece of hair and doing the highlights on the hair. And it's all complete. And this is the final result. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I just want to say thank you so much. This is my first video I've decided to make. I figured I paint, I make TikToks, I have a camera. Why not make YouTube videos while I do it? Thanks so much. Have a good one.